Okay, thanks, Lenny. Welcome back, those of you that are with us this morning. Welcome to those that have just joined us for this actually amazing concept and process that is the Positive Experiences Collective Conference. The culmination this year of some amazing pieces of research and project work and development, um, all really looking to bringing the physical literacy consensus framework, process, mindset, concept to life here in England. And those of you that are joining us for overseas, you're very welcome. And we hope that there's something here that's of interest and something perhaps that can grow into your own situations and your own circumstances. I've got the pleasure of being the bookend today, start and finish and referee. My name's Trevor Smith. I've got the real privilege of being the vice chair of the International Physical Literacy Association. So this whole process, the work that's happening in England, has been phenomenal and absolutely brilliant to be part of this today. I was involved in one of the cohort one patchwork programs last year, so have some empathy with my colleagues that are sitting here that are gearing up to talk to you about what they've done today, and I know you'll do a cracking job. Um, and in my day job, the bit that really appeals to me about all of this is we're talking about place-based working. Um, Things that work in some situations don't not necessarily work in others. And the place in which it happens is perhaps as important, maybe more so in some people's circumstances, as what you're doing and who you're doing it with. So we're going to explore a couple of approaches to that today. We have two presentations today. The plan is both will present. If you have questions, then please hang on to them because at the end of the two presentations, we'll throw the floor open for questions. Um, just check with Matt. The chat is working, Matt, so people, if they want to put something in the chat, they can.
Yes, it should be. Yes.
Okay,
Unfortunately,
perfect.
because I'm
So
driving, I can't see anything, so I'm a bit blind.
fine. Please use that as you will. So I'm going to crack straight on with it. We've got two presentations, as I said. Both around the theme around youth engagement, family connection. Um, we're hearing first from the project which is called Healthy Chances for Children, which is a London-based program, and the presenters will introduce themselves. But we have Darnell from London Sport, we have Lewis from Let's Get Active, and we have Liana from L&Q Foundation. Followed by a project down on the south coast in Dorset, from Active Dorset and from Stormbreak, and they'll introduce themselves. We'll cut in when they finished. So, um, healthy chances for children. Let's go. And we're starting with Darnell from London Sport, I believe. Darnell, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation for Healthy Chances for Children, Changing Chances and Not Children. Next slide, please. I'm Darnell. I work for London Sport. I'm currently the multi-sport facilities lead, and previously I was one of the development managers looking after the place-based partnership work. Collectively, over the years, I've always had a passion for putting community voices first, at the heart of decision making, but also making sure that we're using live experiences in creating insight and meaningful touch points across my work. Lewis?
I'm Lewis. So I'm the founding director of Let's Get Active. We launched in 2017 and have since been focusing on delivering community-based programs at a high quality, and initially started off in basketball provision, but have recently expanded to early years and other sports, and now have a pathway of physical activity for children as young as 18 months all the way up to adulthood. And outside of this role, I've recently completed my PhD in sport for development, so to speak. So I've got a bit more of a broader understanding of the societal impact and just the general impact that sport can have on young children and young people in Lambeth or London, sorry. Liana.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Liana. I work for London and Quadrant Housing Association in the foundation, which is like the community development arm of the Housing Association. And a lot of our work is centered around improving the health and well-being of our residents and making our neighborhoods nicer places to live. I've worked in sport development for over a decade across multiple sectors, including active partnerships, local authority, education, and now in housing. And for me, as well as a lifelong passion for physical activity, I've really been driven by a desire to help people find the right activity for them. because I believe everyone can enjoy moving more when the movement is the right fit. So yeah, that's all of us introduced. And now if we could please move on to the next slide. So one of the questions we've really been looking at is what if we're getting child health wrong? So we started by reframing the challenge because we understood that health inequalities are not random. It's driven by deprivation. And we've learned that delivery programs on their own don't create lasting behavior change because children's health isn't just shaped by activity. It's shaped by the environment that they live in, the relationships they have, and everyday experiences. So the question kind of shifted from how do we get children more active to something much more important, which is how do we change children's chances, not children. Next slide, please. And this matters really deeply. These statistics were something that really were quite alarming to me because we found that 1 in 3 children in Barking and Dagenham were starting school already living with being overweight or obese. So that's like reception age 5. And by the end of primary school in year 6, that becomes almost 1 in 2. So it isn't just about physical activity. It's about equity, opportunity, life chances. If we wanted to improve the outcomes, we have to act across families, schools, communities, and local systems because better experiences today are going to create healthier outcomes for tomorrow. So at its core, we've really been looking at physical literacy within our project, not just as an outcome, but something that really shapes lifelong well-being. So we were looking at co-designing with families, not delivering to them, collaborating across sectors, health, education, housing, sport, community. And most importantly, we were thinking about systems because we're not trying to just deliver short-term programs. Even following this patchwork program project that we're doing, we plan to continue afterwards and make it sustainable. So we are really trying to create long-term transformational change. I'm going to hand over to Darnell now.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So children don't live in systems, they live in places, families, and daily routines. Next slide. So we have our 3 pillars here. We've got delivery, education, and insight. In our delivery strand, we wanted to focus on creating fun, accessible opportunities where we help families build confidence, motivation, and positive experiences around being active in safe spaces. And for education and our education strand, our focus was to equip both practitioners and families so that we increase the likelihood of lasting behaviour change beyond this project. And then last but not least, our 3rd pillar was focusing on insight. So in our insight pillar, community voices shape delivery throughout the cycle. And that's ensuring that activities meet the needs of the local families. Delivery gets people involved, education builds capability, and insight drives continuous improvement. Thank you. Next slide, please. So looking at what we've been testing, so one of the areas that we've been testing is, we wanted to understand how to create intergenerational consultation. And then we do that through our festivals, our healthy family festivals, which my peers will also talk more in depth about. And consultation is really important to us, not just because, it's for the people and the communities that are out there, but it's also important for us to have better learning. And we only do that through speaking and connecting and shaping through their support, what we're doing in the sector. One of the other areas we've been looking at is sustainability. So as we all know, sustainability is key. So we wanted to strengthen our approach with active explorer sessions and look at how that can be scaled. As we know, there's lots of investment or there's lots of programs that are very short term. And then it gets people initially tapped in to something that they were uncomfortable with. And then the funding get cut and it stops. So when we've been looking at our approach full stop, we've been looking at how do we make anything that we do sustainable, and we do that through partnering and exploring different opportunities. And then our third area, what we've been testing, is looking at system development. So what we are building is a piece of the Healthier Lives jigsaw. So it's important for us to work with the system and strengthen what's already been done there. So, for example, delivering CPD and workshops with teachers, that is one way that we do that in strengthening the system. Thank you. Next slide, please.
So in terms of the work we're doing, so I'll do my best to kind of include these within the three pillars, but I think it's really important to understand before we did any work in the local community, it was really important for us to build those key relationships and those core relationships with those pre-existing groups, with those pre-existing organizations that were already covering some ground in this space. So as you can see, the top left is all about collaboration. We didn't come in and prescribe programs and projects to a currently existing community that were well aware of its needs. We collaborated and consulted with local organizations as much as we did with local families. Darnell alluded to the Healthy Families Festival. So we like to think of those as our introduction to the local community. So we ran 2 events to date. And essentially, those are 3 events that bring together an accumulation of local practitioners in local trusted spaces to deliver an ideation of our Active Explorers program, as well as family yoga, serving healthy snacks and drinks, and just an opportunity for us to meet local families, for local families to congregate and connect, and for also them to get a taste of our work and the real preview of our work before having to commit long term. Also touching on sustainability, so off the back of these festivals, we launch longer term, year-long projects. And I say year-long, they're piloted for a year, and if they're successful, they continue onwards. But we launch these year-long projects in spaces that are proximal or in the same space as the Healthy Families Festival. And we like to have those ready to go prior to the festival. So whilst we're connecting with local families and children and practitioners, we can signpost directly to that session at said festival. And that serves as an opportunity to get not just the children, but the families engaged on a weekly basis on a high quality physical activity program. And something that myself and the Let's Get Active team have really focused on over the years is getting more families involved in the activities. So we do things like family days. We do activities where parents can join in with the kids. We even make parents active participants, if you will. But that's a key part of the work in this particular project in terms of getting the whole family active. And then I suppose lastly, the bit around education. So that's kind of taken off over the last 4 to 6 months, and we've managed to secure quite a few local primary schools and early years learning centres to deliver CPD, to upskill local teachers, local PE teachers, local youth workers, local key workers to deliver not necessarily what we do, because that can be quite intricate, but just to deliver maybe a more simple version of a high quality physical activity session. Because we know that we can't be everywhere at once. So making sure that the local communities practitioners are upskilled is super important. Next slide, please, Trevor. So I suppose the best way to think of this work is that movement is the outcome. It's not necessarily the focus, but development is the priority. So making sure that these young children, even these families, develop as a result of accessing regular movement. And then the physical literacy is essentially the golden thread of what we do. We're very cognizant of it when it's not a term that we're banging down, the heads of our patrons that attend our sessions, but we're well aware of it, and it very much forms and heavily influences everything that we do. Trevor, next slide, please. So naturally, this type of work, like any type of work, will come with its themes. Something that's really emerged is that families, particularly in Barking and Dagenham, are really focused on doing activities together. A lot of the children that we are working with are of that COVID era and were born in that COVID era, so that community sense is almost gone. And I think a lot of families want to kind of revive that through physical activity, which is something we've tried to focus on. The safety and just how welcoming these environments are is super important. needless to say, Barking and Dagenham is quite a deprived area, and that's me being quite modest. And with that comes youth crime and various other types of crime that parents are naturally going to be concerned with and wanting to make sure that that's alleviated or at least controlled as and when they're taking part in sport and physical activity. The cost of living crisis is something I think we're all experiencing. So just making sure that programs are reasonably priced, if they are priced, and just making sure we're super flexible with that pricing. So if there is someone that is on universal credit or on free school meals, just making sure that we have that wiggle room to make it more attainable and affordable for them. Communication's a big thing. So what we're starting to experience is that we have parents that are from different generations. We have parents that are more accustomed to digital and online communication, and then some parents or even grandparents that care for the children that are more accustomed to more traditional ways of communication, leafleting, in-person conversations, consultations, etc. So really making sure that we hit that middle ground of making sure that we take advantage of all different types of communication channels to reach as many families and decision makers within those families as possible. And just the provision for younger children, there's a lot of focus on that primary school age, but that 0 to 5 or 18 months to 5 is often quite neglected. And we know, and I'm sure most of you on this call know, that that's a really important age, not just for physical development, but just for general development of children. And that's something that we've really tried to hammer down on. But it doesn't come without its challenges. So as much as I'd love to say we're getting loads of support everywhere, we're not. We're a very passionate team and we know what we're doing, but trying to connect the different agencies within the borough alone has been quite challenging. Public health, the local authority itself, local clubs, local schools. Everyone is a bit under it right now, so it's not on the top of everyone's priority list. So for us, it's over the course of the next year to 5 years even, making sure that we continue to try and bring these groups together in the necessary forums. The other thing is just where this program or where physical activity falls in the priority list. So yes, we get loads of signups for our events, but unfortunately, that doesn't always convert. So you can see we've got a 24% attendance conversion, but 160 people are showing interest. So the key thing to remember is that people are interested. It's just not on their priority list. So for us, it's, again, Liana alluded to that behavior change. How do we bridge that gap and get more families to start shifting towards that behavior change? But the key thing that we've written at the bottom is the strongest driver of all of this is the trust and not necessarily the activity itself. Next slide, please, Trevor. So we've got a video to show you. Trevor's going to play it, but it's from our last Healthy Families Festival, which helps you kind of visualize what we're all about or what the events are all about. So today was our second ideation of the Healthy Families Festival. Again, a really good opportunity for us to connect with local families in the community as we really look to develop and springboard a lot of the programs we're running for children aged 18 months to 8 years old. It's also an opportunity for us to have real conversations with local families about what it is they get up to, some of their needs, some of their wants, and hopefully we can fill some of those gaps from a physical activity perspective with our partners like the L&Q Foundation and London Sport.
It's really great to have a taster day like this as a sort of launch pad for these kind of activities. Doing something like this on a weekly basis with kids, I'd be interested in it, and I think the kids would be interested in it as well. We got here and it was all very well organised. Someone took us to the next activity and we just had a lot of fun. And then the yoga was slightly slower, a bit more relaxing. What I loved most about it is the fact that I could get involved with you guys as well. It was such an enjoyable day, and the only question I had was, how do we keep this going?
Really good day, really insightful. Coaches and practitioners were amazing as always, and we're looking forward to doing much more in the coming months. So in terms of what next, I've alluded to it. I suppose we want to continue the good work we've kind of started to cover ground on. From an organizational perspective, as we're the deliverer, so to speak, we're going to continue embedding physical literacy across all of our programs and making sure that within our CPD, it's made a priority. We mention it every workshop, and we're constantly challenging our coaches and our staff to find creative ways to get children and young people to fall in love with movement. The teacher CPD stuff, again, it's picking up speed. Probably will take a break over the summer holidays, which, as you'd expect, with schools closed. But come September, it's something we're really trying to roll out quite heavily. And maybe not just limit it to Barking and Dagenham, but see if we can start impacting other schools across the city and even nationwide. The partnership work, again, it's a slow burner, but we're going to get there. I think we had to create proof that this work exists and it works. And I think we've done that. So it's a lot easier to have those conversations, and we're just going to continue to build on those relationships and try and bring more key decision makers to the table. And that family-centered approach, just, continuing to validate and continuing to encourage other organizations and other sector leaders to start incorporating it in their work, because we believe it's powerful, and I'm sure a lot of you do. And then start really trying to scale out our model and think about how we could make this scalable, again, like I mentioned, not just in Barking and Dagenham, but hopefully across the city and maybe nationwide. I know we've got quite a few people from different parts of the country, so that's definitely something that we would love to support with. But essentially what we are trying to do is move from just delivering activities to having a real influence on local systems and hopefully national systems at some point. Next slide. Sorry, Trevor.
Okay, so I think it's back to me for this one. So as Lewis has mentioned, we have been looking a lot at systems change, and he mentioned how our program is already shifting from delivering activity to influencing how the system works, and through workforce development, school engagement, partnerships, and family-centered approaches. And I think one of the things we really want to do through our CPD work is increase the confidence of early years practitioners, nursery nurses, primary school teachers, etc., to feel confident to deliver that movement and that physical activity, because for a lot of children, their first experience of structured physical activity will be in an educational setting. And so we need to make sure that the providers and the leaders in those settings have that confidence, those skills, that knowledge to be able to deliver quality movement and physical activity sessions. I think for us, one of our biggest learnings is that families don't necessarily need more programs. They need trusted people, welcoming places, supportive relationships, because that's what's been driving the engagement. And physical literacy will become sustainable when it's embedded into the people, the places, and the systems around them. Lasting change won't come from standalone interventions. It will come from creating the environments where healthy behaviours can thrive. And so ultimately, the goal isn't to just deliver more activity, it's to build the conditions where health becomes a part of everyday life. Next slide, please.
So a question I want to leave you guys with is, what if every child had the same healthy chance? Healthy Chances for Children has demonstrated that lasting change starts with community connection. By building trust, strengthening relationships, and empowering local communities, the program is creating the conditions for healthy behaviours to become part of everyday family life. The real opportunity lies not in delivering more programs, but in embedding positive experiences, physical literacy, and support networks into the people, places, and systems that shape children's lives. So again, I ask you guys, what if every child had the same healthy chance? Thank you. Next slide. Thank you all for your time and your patience with us. I hope you guys enjoyed. There is a QR code there if you guys want to scan it. It is our latest report to date. And then, as you can see, we've got our contact details, and then I'll also pop it in the chat. Thank you all.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, a really good start. And I think, I mean, just looking at some of the comments and your own reactions as we go on through to that. So clearly it's resonating with a lot of people. And I think it's that whole piece around, for me, the piece where, it's about putting the activity where the people are, the place that people trust, the people that they are with that they trust. As you said, Lewis, this is not actually about physical activity. It's about putting that into what's a broader offer. And I think sometimes maybe we get a little bit too carried away with getting people moving at all costs, and programs don't do that. And I think we're seeing that more and more, particularly post-COVID. So thank you. So hang on, I've got your questions from the chat, for those of you that have been listening, and we will come back to those. But let's crack on with our second presentation. And we've got Kelly and Claire from Active Dorset, and we have Sophia from Stormbrook. So ladies, just introduce yourselves, and yeah, we're looking forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Thank you, Trevor. And just to say, it's Stormbreak, not Stormbrook, but that's fine.
Oh, apologies.
That's all right. Sorry, I had to say that to start with.
No, you're quite right too.
No worries. So, welcome everyone this afternoon. Thank you for bearing with us in this heat. So our project is a youth engagement programme in Weymouth and Portland. From Active Dorset's perspective, this is one of our priority areas for our place-based work. So slide 2, please. So this is the team that's been behind this particular programme. So perhaps a less sweaty version on the left, myself and Claire from Active Dorset. And we have Sophia joining us this afternoon as well, not including Sadie. But we've got some other brilliant colleagues as well that aren't with us, but have equally made a really great contribution to this programme. So we've got Daryl, Martin and Claire from Stormbreak as well. So next slide, please. So we know that young people's daily experiences, environments and relationships all shape how easy or difficult it is for them to move more. But as you can see, young people living in Weymouth and Portland sometimes face additional challenges compared with some of their peers elsewhere in Dorset. So through our work so far, one message has come through really clearly, and that's that youth and community spaces are absolute lifelines. So a few places to note in the Weymouth and Portland area, so places like A-Stars, Steps Club and the Portland Drop-In offer emotional support, safety and a sense of belonging. And they also provide really amazing positive distractions from antisocial behaviour. So there is a little letter on the right-hand side where one young person captured perfectly in a letter that they wrote at their local youth club called Park Community Centre. So this is what they said. Do excuse the way I read this. But this place is absolutely gangtastic. # live, laugh, love. Pros, have people to talk to when sad. Every time I've struggled with my mental health, Georgia and Vicky have helped me through it. Fun activities over half terms and holidays. Cons, none. So this really does raise an important question for us. How can we support these trusted adults within the youth settings to explore their own relationship with movement and help them understand the factors that influence how likely young people are to be active? And even more importantly, how can they help young people find ways of moving that motivate them, excite them, or simply help them to connect with others? Next slide, please. Thank you. Sophia, on to you.
Thank you. So our multidisciplinary approach has strengthened our ability to engage, nurture and support underrepresented young people effectively. 4 elements that have been particularly important in aligning our work with Lundy's model of youth participation: space, voice, audience and influence. So in regards to space, we recognise that engaging underrepresented young people requires careful planning to address barriers such as transport, accessibility and appropriate incentives. Working closely with youth leaders provided valuable insights into the young people's needs and helped us make informed decisions about engagement. For example, avoiding Amazon vouchers, which we were told could be used on vapes. So by tailoring our approach and delivering sessions in familiar, trusted venues, we created a safe and welcoming environment where young people felt comfortable sharing their views and participating meaningfully throughout the project. For voice, youth leaders shared inequality characteristics with us so we could accommodate the young people's needs sensitively. young people were able to express their experiences with physical activity and movement freely, and we then worked with them to organise these into themes. For audience, our strong connections to place and local systems have created multiple opportunities for young people to share their message directly. This includes a face-to-face meeting with system leaders in July, providing a valuable opportunity for young people to decide how they want to communicate their feelings and perspectives and to speak for themselves rather than having others speak on their behalf. Finally, for influence, young researchers will be invited to meet the decision makers in Weymouth and Portland to influence future work. At the moment, this is including pathway improvements and green spaces around the new family hubs. Next slide, please. So we created this infographic to support a youth-led research process, providing a clear framework throughout the project. In the first workshop, young people identified 5 key themes influencing physical literacy and physical activity from their perspective. This was access, social factors, safety, feelings, and environment. These insights shaped the research framework. So the young people chose the themes most relevant to them, developed their own research questions, and gathered evidence through creative methods such as photography, drawing, surveys, interviews, audio, and video recordings. So the findings were uploaded securely and anonymously, then explored collectively in the final workshop. The survey data was pre-analysed by our independent researcher, Claire, to support the discussion and presentation planning in that final workshop. So this approach really kept the young people's experiences at the centre while giving them the ownership of the research process. Next slide, please, and over to Claire.
Thanks, Sophia. So I'm just going to talk a bit about our belief and the approach that we've taken through the work. So we've linked this to the Think, Feel, Move and Connect framework that forms part of the Physical Literacy Consensus Statement, because we think if we want real change, then we have to start with real understanding. So through this work, we believe that if we listen to young people, when we amplify their voices and when we help them and the adults that they trust, we can recognise how they think, feel and connect with physical activity, and everything shifts. Suddenly, we're not just fixing problems, we're co-designing solutions, we're breaking down the inequalities and we're removing barriers. So we're building confidence and skills with the young people and the youth workers and trusted adults that actually stick. And our belief is that if we do that, that's when the young people will start engaging in physical activities in ways that feel meaningful, accessible and genuinely theirs. Next slide, please, Matt. Thank you. So through this work and through the Patchwork programme, we've kind of worked through different approaches and different methods. And one of the things that we've looked at is a small bet or a small testable action that we can take through. And this is based on our learning throughout the programme. And the bet that we want to test moving forward when we move out of the Patchwork programme is if we support the youth and community workforce by improving their understanding of physical literacy and the influence that they have on the young people they support, we can start actually driving a change and a sustainable change. So we want to translate physical literacy into a digestible, practical format, meeting the youth workers and the youth leaders where they currently are. And some of their reflections that we've heard throughout the process are shown in the blue speech bubbles on this slide. And our intent is to explore some key questions with them, which include what is physical literacy, what is their relationship with movement, and how this might influence the way that they deliver or prioritise physical activity in their club or community. So I'm just going to hand you over to Kelly, who'll take you through the next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you.
So this particular video is not produced by a posh videographer or even mashed together in the most fluent way, but hopefully it really does reflect the diversity and also the fact that we really do want to embrace the chaos in terms of some of the data that we receive from young people. So really excited to share with you this 5-minute snippet of the qualitative data that we've collected from our young people. So if you're happy to play, Matt.
Would you be more likely to go to the gym with your friends or by yourself?
Probably, if I was going to the gym for the first time, I'd probably like to go with someone. But then once I got used to it, I'd probably be alright on my own.
Okie dokie. Would you be more likely
of how women can feel unsafe in public, because they seem quite sexualized in public by other men, and this is what leads to rape and things like sexual assault. And of course, this is a very unsafe thing in Weymouth. But I feel like we could prevent this with a lot more police patrols and a lot more like education when they're younger against rape and sexual assault against women.
Welcome to our cool little safety podcast. It's about safety.
The things that do make me feel unsafe is the roads and a lot of the people out. So if I'm going out in the evening, God forbid, it's super duper dark. So if I'm just trying to walk somewhere and it's dark, I do feel very apprehensive, very scared, because I don't know who's gonna because I don't know whether or not somebody's gonna come up behind me and like hurt me or attack me.
It's very possible.
Because I have endured verbal harassment and verbal abuse just for walking around the island.
I feel your pain, Kim.
I have been called slurs on multiple occasions. It's not very nice, guys. I think if you paid me £500, I wouldn't go outside, especially at dark, alone on Portland.
Nah.
Like, unless I had anything to defend myself with, or an immediate, like, contact with somebody.
I know what you could defend yourself with. The broom! I'm bringing this into the podcast now.
You really wanted an excuse for that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Accessing stuff is incredibly difficult. So, unless you're a Wey Valley student, you're able to access their free gym for Wey Valley students. But thankfully, I've recently joined the school. But say one of my mates who lives on the island, she isn't able to get that free gym membership.
Not to mention, even if she does get the free gym membership, she still has to get there. So bus or transport, either one is going to cost a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
And not to mention, if you do end up going to the gym, it's quite pressuring to be there when you've got all these people who know what they're doing, quite physically fit, or even just people you might not really know. It's a bit nervous to start working out and sweating and getting all red and puffy in front of everyone.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a nice. It's not exactly a nice. Very impoverished.
We are sadly very disadvantaged in like our economic situation here.
We poor babes.
Yeah. We poor gals. We poor. Hashtag I used to be on benefits.
Hashtag I could probably do with some benefits.
Yeah. So affording to be able to go to the gym was out of the question for me because I don't have 32 quid laying around my pet.
Got self-conscious about physical activity. What would you do to motivate them?
I would tell them that it's okay and they can do it. I would help them and I'd make sure everyone is there to hype them up. And don't judge them. And don't judge them, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Right, what motivates you to be more physically active?
Well, I think doing physical activity just makes you feel better and like you're like doing good to your body. Yeah. Howling.
Okay, thank you. What 3 things would you change in your community to help young people be more physically active?
I would put a kids-only gym and let them go when they want. Put some free
Thank you, Matt. Absolutely love that video. Even with the chaos, love it. So I know we're probably slightly overrunning, but these are some specific quotes that have come out of all of the videos, surveys, voice notes that we got all in all. So I'll read of those. And obviously the slides will come after. So I will go on to the next slide, if that's all right, Claire.
Thank you. Could we have the next slide, please, Matt? Thank you. So this slide just really summarises it where we are now. So we've completed the initial engagement with our group of young researchers across Weymouth and Portland. And we've got a much clearer understanding of the barriers, enablers and opportunities, in their own words, that influence their relationship with movement. And the next phase for us is about working with some of those young researchers to turn insight into meaningful change. So in terms of sharing the findings, we don't want to simply present results. We want to work with our young researchers to help shape how their voices are communicated. And to begin with, we've got a group of 3 of our young researchers will share their work at a systems leadership event that we're holding locally in July. In terms of strengthening relationships, the relationships built with youth groups and youth leaders are valuable, and we couldn't have done this work without those relationships. But it shouldn't just end with the research. So there's a piece for us around continued engagement to help maintain trust and to ensure that the young people remain part of the future conversations and the decisions that are made. There's a piece around turning insight into action. So we're working with partners and system leaders locally to identify priorities and agree collective action. And this included early conversations with local groups about improving access to parks and other community spaces, and where relevant, linking it to other priorities locally. So, for example, in part of Weymouth, we've got Pride in Place, so there's an opportunity there for some of the youth engagement work that we've done to help influence some of those conversations. And then finally, improving their relationship with movement. So we want to support the adults to create positive and inclusive experiences that help young people feel confident and motivated to move in ways that work for them. And as we've touched on already, a future ambition is to broaden the youth leaders and youth workers' understanding of movement so that they can model positive attitudes and recognise movement in all its forms. So I'm just going to hand over to Sophia for the next slide.
Thank you, Claire. So this slide is an infographic that's capturing our sort of key takeaway from this project so far and what we've learned. So what we see above the ground, things like participation levels, activity, opportunities, and health outcomes, is shaped by the deeper factors beneath the surface. So what we've learned is below the surface that isn't necessarily as visible. Trusted relationships matter the most. So involving youth leaders helped us engage young people and encourage leaders to reflect on their own relationship with movement, which we've mentioned before. Practical barriers often outweigh conceptual ones. Cost, transport, confidence, and competing priorities have a huge impact on participation. Young people's understanding of movement can be broadened. Many realise movement isn't a nice sport, which was a lovely outcome from the workshops we did. They realise that it actually includes everyday activity, informal play, and opportunities to connect with others. And then trusted adults need support too. If adults don't share this broad understanding, then young people won't see it modelled to them. And finally, as Kelly said, embrace the chaos, which you can see we really enjoyed doing. The findings didn't always fit neatly into themes, but giving young people's genuine ownership led to richer insights. So together, these roots, relationships, role models, understanding and reducing barriers are what will help young people develop a more positive relationship with movement. Next slide, please, and over to Kelly.
So this is our call to action. So this image may reflect something or an analogy that you've seen maybe a long time ago. But our call to action is to think about each of your individual roles and how you play. Oh dear me, sorry. Think about the role that you play in influencing young people's relationship with physical activity. So these, just to note, the 3 young people on the left will be coming to our systems leadership event, and Gina on the right is the lead officer for supporting that youth council, if you're probably wondering the variation in ages. But yeah, so that's our call to action today, and thank you so much for listening this afternoon.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, two really, really good presentations, and I think, yeah, and certainly looking at the comments and the reactions now, it's hitting, it's resonating across a number of people's thinking processes, I think. And what I love, that whole piece about chaos, isn't that the wonderful thing about working with young people? Actually, it's that complete unexpectedness that you're going to get. And I've always reminded of the little statement that a little child wrote on one of our youth engagement things. Little people have big voices. And it's just too often we don't take any notice of those. And I think what you've both demonstrated here is that there's a way to do that. There's a way to engage. One of Sport England's, you might have seen those if you're in the UK, the kind of the feedback parameters around this place-based working, the partnership projects that have been going on, and one of those key messages and key bits of advice to anybody working in this is to say yes to the mess, because that's probably where you're most likely to get something different coming out of it. If we stay safe, we're never going to address it, and we won't challenge or change an issue with the same mindset that created it. So we have to jump in with both feet and be prepared to go where the energy is, and maybe the solution won't be perfect, but it'll be better. So, and I think what you've demonstrated here is that kind of evolving process, which is fantastic. We've had a few questions in the chat, and then we'll open up if anybody else has any other thing particularly that they want to say. One particularly for the first presentation for the London Brigade around funding. So there's a question, you might have seen that yourselves, about how all that piece of work is funded. Is that something that you're able to give us an answer to?
Leon, I suppose you can cover a bit and then I can chime in after.
Yeah, sure. So one of the main project that I work on as part of my role is a Sport England funded health and wellbeing project aimed at getting our residents more active. And that's called the Get Set Go project. So you would have seen one of the banners in the video that we played. So due to the intergenerational nature of the work that we're trying to do by getting families involved and get them active and moving with their young people, I'm able to utilize some of the project funding I have for the Get Set Go project towards this.
And I think one of the parameters for all of these patchwork, if people aren't familiar with patchwork, the process, these are all projects that are going to happen anyway in some way, shape or form. So the idea of the patchwork programs is this is work that's kind of already going on, but is using the physical literacy lens, applying the physical literacy lens to that piece of work. So we would hope that everything that's happening here is already core funded through either, as Liana said, through project budgets, some through the active partnerships funding. But great that the networks. I think, Dave, you're making a point about the community involvement, community engagement, and I think there's a really strong piece there around actually it's the stronger together piece, isn't it? We've all got something. We can bring time or we can bring resource, and often the skill is bringing those things together. I'm looking at the question here from Dave about the community and interested in the decisions and understanding and decisions and data. Do you want to ask that question, Dave, just so to be sure we contextualize it right? Maybe he's not there. He's online. So I don't know whether you can see this question, but what Dave's asking is whether he'd be interested in understanding the decisions and data that inform the selection of those locations, those communities, the places in which it happened. Were they priority areas anyway? Were the circumstances and conditions just more amenable to that work going on? How did you choose? Let's start with Dorset on that one.
You go first and then I can add.
Okay, so we our place work is funded through Place Universal Offer by Sport England. We identified probably, gosh, you've been here
Probably around
months,
January.
so yeah, a couple of years ago, started looking at the data and understanding the needs for our area. So some of that was kind of Sport England place needs classification. but some of that was also local data and insight. And we could see emerging themes. So Weymouth and Portland is one of the more deprived areas in Dorset. So when we're talking to local stakeholders, it constantly comes up as an area of concern, and a recognition that some of those communities need more support. Through the data and insight that was available locally, we were seeing some emerging themes around children and young people and some of the inequalities that were experienced, particularly by some of those communities. Weymouth and Portland sits within Dorset Council. Dorset Council, it's fair to say, does have a strong focus on being on children's rights and taking a right-led approach, and they have a good amount of youth voice, but we were seeing gaps in the youth voice and insight around physical activity and those barriers. We'd had some 1,000 voices insight done in the Dorset Council area that was led by our public health teams, but there was a gap in terms of the richness of data for children and young people. So it came out as a keen priority for us, but also for local partners and stakeholders to try and better understand the lived experience of some of those young people in our communities experiencing inequalities. So that's where it came from. I think we've benefited from, there's been a good level of interest from both the local authority, different teams, but also kind of the VCSE sector in terms of supporting our work. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add from that perspective.
No, I don't think so. I guess the recent announcement around the Pride in Place investment in two smaller pockets in the Weymouth area really highlight that as well. And yeah, I think that's pretty much. CYP mental health is really high on the agenda as well for the integrated neighbourhood team in the Weymouth and Portland area. So it all kind of slotted quite well in that case as well.
Right, Darnell, I'm looking at you because you're my face that's on the screen. So
yeah, no, that's fine. And for our group, so Barking and Dagenham was actually one of the places selected by Sport England for the place-based investment. And that's where our initial interlink between the three different organisations sat. We all work across London, and this is something that we want to span across more areas. But the initial touch point was the work that we were doing with the place-based work in Barking and Dagenham. And as you saw from our previous stats in our presentation, it aligns really well with what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to support. So it was a no-brainer for us to start in Barking and Dagenham.
And I have a question for Liana about housing associations linked to all of that, because that's for me, they're not necessarily regular partners in these kind of things. So what was it that made a housing association see the value in this? And do you think that's something that which should go wider? We should be using more widely.
Yes, 100%. We definitely should. I think the relationship came about with Sport England and prior to me being in post, but they were looking to, through the active environment strand of work, they were looking at how they could engage more with people on the ground, like the communities that they were trying to reach. And they realized that housing associations have access to all of these people, and they would be a great partner to have to start that engagement. So we started the project I think around end of 2021, beginning of 2022, and we trialed in two areas. We were in Waltham Forest and in Lewisham, and following the learnings from that, we were able to then expand and grow the project into 4 new areas: Newham, Tower Hamlets, Barking and Dagenham and Lambeth, and then also Trafford up in Manchester. And we've also taken a place-based approach to our work within the foundation. So we have community development leads who support our communities in a multitude of different ways. And we have one of those in each of our kind of key boroughs. But also for us, when we were selecting the boroughs, we probably did the same research that Sport England were doing anyway. And so when we proposed to them our boroughs, they said, oh yeah, that we think they sound good. And then they released the information about the place work, and it was all of the boroughs that we had selected anyway. But yeah, as a housing association, L&Q really do want to support their residents and in a much more holistic way. So we also offer things like employment support, debt advice, scholarships, loads of different things. But they understand that health and well-being and physical activity is also something that needs to be prioritized. And there's a HACS report that was also released that showed what the priorities kind of are for people that are working in housing associations in community leadership roles and also kind of community officer roles, and physical activity can support all of them. So yeah, it's definitely a priority for us, and we're hoping to share our learnings across the sector with other housing associations and look at how we can collaborate better as a sector.
No, fantastic. And I'm guessing, I mean, this is maybe a generalization, but I'm sure in some of those all of those priority place communities across the country, the housing association is going to be a key player in pretty much all of those. So I'm sure really, really valuable partners to pick up on that. Thanks, Sophia, for picking up Milan's question about online stuff. So if you didn't see that in the chat, this is about whether there's any online findings, and Sophia has put her email address in there for you to follow that one up. I have in the absence of any other questions at the moment, I'm going to ask one more. I think we've got a couple of minutes left. Which is about sustainability, and it's a word that came up a lot during all the presentations, and a really strong message, I think, in both presentations about programs not being the answer, and about this 6-week come and try this and then we'll leave you on your own to carry on kind of approach, which has been very much a format, I think, for too many years in the way we're dealing with this. And the whole piece around putting the opportunity where people are and where they feel safe and where they feel appropriate. What do you think are the key? I'm going to maybe ask each of you to come up with one thought process, if you're comfortable with that. What's the one thing that you think we need to change in the way we approach this whole thing around putting movement and physical activity into people's lives? The one thing we need to change in the system that would help that sustainability. Somebody wave if they're ready to go. That was a tricky one to land on you. Darnell, brilliant. Thank you.
I would say for me, breaking down the system barriers, like the hierarchies. So what's worked really well for our group, for example, is, us working with housing and also working for a provider. We've broken that traditional systems of us not working together, and we're all moving in the same direction. So we all have alignment. But unfortunately, what happens within the system is that people don't talk to each other, or everyone has similar aims but different aims, and it's kind of like, I want to own this. But whereas us collaborating together has ensured sustainability across all of our programming and our wider organizations. Hopefully that answers.
Brilliant. Thank you. Let's go. And I apologize to everybody else because I think we're just about running out of time. So somebody's going to end up cut off in the middle of a sentence. But thank you from everybody's points of view. And I think all of this is challenging. It's pushing us along. The physical literacy approach, many of you have said we're not using that language, and that's fine because it's the outcome that we're looking for. Anybody that's listening, if you're interested in cohort 3 of the Patchwork program, then find the positiveexperiences.org website and you can register your interest. For all of you that are involved in this work, please don't give up. It's a long journey. It's evolution, not revolution. I think we heard that earlier as well. But thanks so much for your engagement with this. Brilliant presentations, and let's hope to see you again.